So in this video, we're going to add a daylight system to our site. So we can start getting some realistic lighting going on, getting some shadows. We can set the time of day. So to set up the daylight system, in my top and front views here, I'm just panning and zooming so that I can see the entire site a little easier. In my Create panel, I'm going to go on the last button to the right here. It's called Systems. So under Systems there, I click on that button, and then I'm going to click on Daylight. It's our daylight system that we're going to use. And with the daylight system, the first thing you draw is a compass. So in my top view, I'm just left-clicking and dragging here. So I'm left click and drag, and this is just an icon. It doesn't render. It tells me which way the sun is going to face. When I release my left mouse, I get the setting here, and I do want to create a MR sky or mental ray sky. I do want the mental ray physical sky environment map, so I'm going to hit yes. That environment map is going to give me a horizon and a color. Now I'm just moving my mouse. In my front view there, I can see where the sun is. It's basically where that icon is right now for the daylight system. And then I just left click to place it. Now I have a little elevation problem here. It looks like my Revit model came at a higher elevation than I want, and that compass went in at 0 elevation. So that's something I'm going to fix later. For now though, I'm just going to use the move command and move that compass up to where my site is, where the bottom of my building is. So I had to click on the compass to move it. Now to actually set the daylight system and the sun settings, I click on the icon there that's up in the sky, that's the actual daylight system, and go into my Modify panel. And notice there's two elements to a daylight system. You have a sunlight and a skylight. And both of them are set to mental ray because they're MR sky and MR sun, which is what we want. And you can just kind of glance at some of the other settings here. You can actually turn the sky or sun off separately. There's multipliers, which is overall intensity of either the sky or the sun. So the sun is more your directional light. Your sky is more just an ambient light. So there's a lot of settings in here. We're going to keep these at the default settings just to get things going and so you can see what it looks like when we start rendering. Next thing I want to set is the position. So notice here it says date, time, and location. I'm going to click on the setup button here. And this is where I can tell it the hour of the day, hour, minutes, and seconds, month, day, and year. Are we on daylight savings time? First thing I'm going to change here, if I pan down to my orbital scale, and I'm going to change that to about 50 feet. Where this icon rests doesn't affect the render. So I'm just moving that at 50 feet just so it's easy to see in my viewports. As I move the daylight system around by changing the hours, I'll be able to easily see it. So that orbital scale, you basically just set what's convenient so you can see it in your viewport. Under my Get Location button here, it defaults to San Francisco. I'm going to change it to Florida. So I'm going to go to St. Petersburg, Florida. Notice under the maps up here, you can go anywhere in the world. All the different continents are in there. And I'm hitting OK. That changed my latitude and longitude. So it does change the location of your daylight system. And then now to render this, I'm in my top toolbar up there. I just left-clicked and dragged it over. It became a little pan hand. And then I activate my perspective view. I just left-clicked in it. And I hit the teapot, the little icon in the upper right corner. Just going to do a test render. Now this is just throwing in daylight system with defaults. You can see the shadows are way too dark. And of course it's not set real realistically yet. I still have a lot of settings to do. I need a lot of work with the materials. Now in my viewport, I can't see the shadows right now. So I'm going to right click over the daylight system and change my viewport shading to good. So in that viewport I want to be able to preview what that daylight system is doing. Here I'm going to change it to shade with scene lights because I want to be able to see it shade. So here I'm getting a good preview now of what that daylight system is doing. Another setting, I'm just right clicking out in space here in the viewport, not in an object. And here I'm going to enable viewport shadows. So enable viewport shadows selected for the selected object, and that's going to even give me a better preview. So those two steps let me really see the shadows and the lighting. And again, it's just a preview. We're not really seeing the full render here, but you can actually move around the daylight system and move your view around here to see what you want to render. So first thing, I'm just kind of moving, panning and zooming. I'm doing an arc rotate now. Just moving around a little bit just so I can see the model better. Later we're going to add a camera, but for now I just want to get a good view so I can see what that daylight system's doing. Hit that teapot icon again. You can also hit F10. Now my horizon line on the top there, you can see the sky. That's from an environment map setting. So the environment is set too high. To fix that on this particular model, all I'm going to do is zoom in and rotate. So I arc rotate, I'm getting closer to that building. I just rotate it so that I'm looking at more of an angle, so the horizon kind of goes off more towards infinity there. And I'm going to do another test render and see if the horizon line will work out for me. So I want to get the horizon line so I'm just seeing the sky up there. And I could go into the daylight system settings and change where that horizon line is. But in this particular instance, just by moving that, I'm getting closer. So as this one renders out, horizon was lower, so it's getting better, but I want to just see sky back there. I don't want that horizon color to show, and all those settings can be changed. And you can actually change that environment map to an image file if you wanted to, if you didn't want to use just this sky color. So I'm going to rotate that some more. Again, I want to get rid of the horizon back there and just see the sky. So I'm zooming in a little closer to my building. And again, this is just to preliminarily get an idea of what my render is going to look like. Notice here I'm changing my hours now, and I want to get it so the front of the building's a little brighter. The shadows are still too dark, but notice as I change those hours, I can actually go early morning, late at night, and later we're going to animate a time study. Right now I'm just finding some hours. I went to 14 hours or 2 o'clock. Just to give me a good view of that building. Going to have some good shadows going on in there. I'm just getting a little bit of that sky in the background. So I'm going to hit that teapot again, or again, just hit F10. And we'll render that out. So it's coming together pretty good here. Again, shadows are too dark, but we're going to fix that later with a setting called Final Gather. For now, I'm just trying to get my horizon line working pretty good. I got to still add a lot of materials in here. I don't have any grass textures. Most of the materials on the building itself are just default right now. But this is just to get me started. And these renders are going about 40-45 seconds long, which is pretty good. Doesn't affect your production time too much because you can render them quickly. Under the rendering menu here, I want to go under Environment. You can also hit F, as the shortcut there. Under Environment, this is where that MR physical sky map shows up. So that was set when we first put the daylight system in. Under exposure control, if you're in an older version of Max, you want to use the logarithmic exposure control and then change exterior daylight, make sure that's checked. That was previous to the 2008 version of Max. 2008, though, has this new mental ray photographic exposure control, and that's what I'm going to use. And there's some nice presets in here. So I'm going to use the external lighting, outdoor daylight, clear sky setting. And notice all the different exposure settings. You get some more real-world type of setting, actually, as if you're using a camera. So I'm going to leave them all at default so that we can see how the default settings look. And at default settings, after I set that preset, we're not going to see much of a change actually right now. I more so use that exposure control so I could change the exposure and do things later when I'm at my final rendering stage. Right now I'm just trying to get everything set up, still render quickly to get everything going. So for those settings, that's going to set everything up. The last thing we're going to have to fix is those shadows though, and we'll do that in part 2 of this video.